Bert, 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 Bert! Get him, yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. It is the 9th of June. I'm sitting in a kennel, and I'm just feeling like we can just get through this one quicker than 20 minutes. Let's try it. First and foremost, Patreon patrons, my number one sponsor. I cannot thank you, girls and guys, enough who join Patreon. If for any reason you don't know what it's at and you don't know what I'm talking about and you're a brand new listener, go to Patreon. It's not hard. Patreon. Just Google it. Or you can go to my website and hit the donate button, and it transfers you over. It links you over to Patreon, and you can, for $5 a month, you can get discounts on a lot of my sponsors' products. As my title sponsor, Pike Gear, almost always is running a special on something. You know, they're like the Cabela's. There's always something on sale at Pike Gear. But I do want to tell you, for regular listeners and for Patreon patrons, those discount codes are going to be deleted as of midnight tonight. Now, again, if you're listening this Thursday, sorry. If you're listening to it this morning, well, you got 6 hours to buy something. Whatever. But the Tongass, the Kiowa, the Northcutt, Pike Gear just keeps adding comfortable clothing for more seasons, more environments, more applications. Their vest knocks it out of the park. Hats, gloves, socks even. Socks that have little tick permethrin. You know, I can't speak any big words over 12 letters. Anyway, it's got an ingredient in the sock that keeps those ticks off your ankles. So I would get a couple pair of socks because the ticks are thick. Gunner Kennels, as always, the number one, the strongest. You can't buy another product out there to put your dog in for a travel crate that's even close. They might look close. They might have stolen the door design. They might have tried to make it look like double wall, rotomolded. It doesn't matter. It's not a Gunner. And if you're gonna take care of your dog and you're happy with your Gunner kennel, and you're probably really happy with the Patreon discount you got, you can apply that discount to the food crate. Now, I have 2 food crates. Truth be told, I only use one of them. I bring the other one out to events, and literally, on my next camping trip, I'm using it for food storage. You could go camping, no squirrels, no raccoons. I think it's bear-proof, actually. I don't think it's been tested. They have knocked it over the Niagara Falls full of food, and it survived that. I'm making that shit up. But anyway, their food crate is also second to none, and everything that Gunner makes is guaranteed for life. You don't get that with anything. I don't know anything in this world. Well, in the old days, it was Craftsman tools. It was. You could go to a Sears store and say, hey, I wasn't supposed to put that socket onto an impact, and I stripped it out, and the guy'd say, yep, get another one. So that and Craftsman tools, the only thing I know that's guaranteed for life. Canine Athlete, that'll help guarantee your dog's life a little bit with New Dog, Hydrate and Recover, probiotics. You want to make your dog, you got the kennel for your dog, you got a fantastic food crate to keep the food in. Of course, we know what kind of food that will be. We'll get to that later. And you want to do a little something extra for your dog like you do for yourself with supplements. Look at the Canine Athlete line of products. That will keep your dog. I can't guarantee it's going to keep your dog. Yes, I can. Yeah, the heck with it. Yes. Canine Athlete, guaranteed to improve your dog's performance. Walton's has everything but the meat, and they're guaranteed, I think that's going to be the theme on this one. They're guaranteed to show you how to do better food prep, better spices, better tools, better recipes. Go to Walton's Meatgistics on YouTube. I'm telling you what, they have some great recipes. They have great spices. They have great sausage stuffers, grinders, plates, meat cleavers. If nothing else, just do this for me. Go to Walton's, click on the little link that you want to get their catalog. Once you get the catalog, It's like Christmas time. It's like you're going to find something you need to make your next meal a Walton's meal. I made that up just now. Yeah, I did. CZ USA, look no further for your next shotgun. You don't need to, I don't care what type you're, if you're looking for an autoloader, 1012 is knocking it out of the park. They can't keep them on the shelves. You're looking for a side-by-side, the crowdsourced gun is the Bob White and the Drake. They can't keep them on the shelves. Why is it they can't keep anything on the shelves? It's because CZ puts the quality into the price point. It's a perfect match, so you don't have to look any further for your next shotgun. Perfect gun to get involved with this sport. Perfect. Almost as perfect as Onyx Maps. Now, Onyx Maps, I think you're going to see, and I've told you this before, there's going to be a pickup truck model coming out pretty soon. And on that screen where it's got your backup camera and your podcast and your temperature controls, I think there's just going to be an Onyx button on there. Everybody uses Onyx. Don't sit there and go, duh, what? HDP 20, you can get 20% off. I don't know what else I can tell you. Know where you stand, know where you hunt, know where you mushroom hunt, know where you, whatever you do. On top of that, they just threw out another layer, a crop layer of last year's crops, which if you really want to dial in your next hunting trip, you can find out what they planted in the field next year or last year. And a lot of times, if it says alfalfa, that's where I'd go, because that crop is there year after year. That is going to be a bird magnet if there's birds to be magnetized. Yeah, I'm not making that up. I can only say that my new thing is guaranteed. Okay, you're guaranteed to love Onyx Maps. You're guaranteed to love CZ, Waltons, K9 Athlete, Gunner Kennels, Pike Gear. You're also guaranteed to be in the majority. When you feed Purina Pro Plan, 9 out of 10 champions, show dogs, agility dogs, there's a reason why 9 out of 10 eat and live on Pro Plan, Purina Pro Plan. Why do you want to be the 1 out of 10? I don't want to be the 1 out of 10. I would never be the 1 out of 10. I'm like, yeah, my dog didn't do good, and I tried. No, you know what? Sometimes dogs are just fussy. I'm telling you. If you can't find a Pro Plan recipe that works for your dog, I might think about getting a new dog. Just tell you. And not the new dog that is made by K9 Athlete, although that is not a bad supplement to put on your dog's food. Garmin, one word says it all. Guaranteed to not lose your dog. Guaranteed to get you to the moon and back. Guaranteed to help you fly your plane. Guaranteed so you can look at your watch and know where your dog is. Just like that. You just look at your watch. Oh, look, dog's 47 yards away. That is the Instinct watch that goes with all the Garmin dog training products is to me, the pinnacle. That they wrapped it all together with a watch that does, there's so many functions on this watch. I stay away from them. I got my heart, originally I thought it was my blood pressure. Thank you for people who wrote to me. It's not my blood pressure, it's my highest and lowest heart rate. But when I look at it, 108 over 56, I like that for blood pressure. Anyway, look at all the Garmin products. One word says it all. They don't need a last name. It's just Garmin. Shooting Sportsman Magazine, the people on my Patreon patrons, they practically gave it away to you. Go to your Patreon page, look up the discount code, get Shooting Sportsman Magazine. It's all about birds, guns, dogs, people, and places, which is what this whole podcast is about. Kind of a perfect partnership. And I want to throw something else out here. My buddy Doug Perincchio from Soggy Dog, okay? He just started being exclusive distributor for a new bird bag. Go to Soggy Dog and check it out. You're going to look at it first and go, well, that's not a bird bag. That's a satchel. No, it's a bird bag. It's the kind they've been using, pro trainers have been using for years. And here's the beauty of it, especially if you're doing pheasants at some point. If you ever put a pheasant into one of those little orange bags, the only kind we've ever been able to get for bird bags, you can get a pheasant head first into one of them things. Try getting one of them out. It's like a breech berth at the hospital. Go to Soggy Dog, check out their new bird bag. We've got 2 of them at our Untitled Chapter, and everybody loves them. Everybody. And everybody's going to love this episode. Danielle Prewett is from the Meateater team. She ran a blog called Wild and Whole and did some work with Pheasants Forever, did some cooking demonstrations, and the Meateater team snatched her up because they knew that this girl was the real deal. And she is self-proclaimed to be not a chef. I think she's a chef. But, if a chef works in a restaurant, Danielle works in her own kitchen, breaks down her own meat, breaks down her own birds. You'll hear all about it.
All right. God, I apologize. I'm trying to look for a little. I am so not. Oh yeah, it's working. Ha ha! Great. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I'm on the phone with Danielle Prewett. If you don't know that name, you probably don't follow anything on the Meateater Network. Danielle, I'm going to probably mess this up, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Danielle. But my knowledge of you is you started was it a blog or a organization called Wild and Whole, and then somehow you ended up in the Meateater mix-up. So give us a little background on Danielle.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. I started a blog 5 years ago called Wild and Whole, and it was really sort of a hobby. I didn't expect much to come from it. I was talked into starting the blog by my friends and my brother because to them, I was living a unique life in which my husband and I hunted for all of our own protein. And I just wanted to live off the land. And so I loved cooking. Cooking's a big part of my life. And so I just started developing recipes, photographing them. And so, yeah, I think I hadn't been doing it for very long when I'll just give you the chain of events. I think it was the North Dakota Game and Fish found out about my blog somehow, and they wrote up an article in their outdoors magazine. And then from there, the Pheasants Forever guys found me and asked me to do some cooking seminars at their national convention. And that year, that was the year that Steve was a keynote speaker. It was a couple years
I remember that one. Yeah.
And so I met up with Steve, Giannis, and Doug Duran for breakfast. And that's how I met Meateater. This was before Meateater grew to become, I guess, the Meateater that we see today at the website. This was
it was on its way to there, but it wasn't there yet. Right.
Yeah. And so I got connected with them, and they asked me to start contributing. And so I started contributing to the website with recipes and joined full time a couple of years ago, and had, I guess, the honor of starting the entire culinary section from the ground up and getting to sort of watch it evolve and grow. And the team has grown so much in the last couple of years. It's just crazy how many people are constantly kind of joining the team and how we're expanding. It's been really fun to watch it all happen. So I'm very honored and proud to be a part of Meateater.
And getting there really in not the ground floor, but it was before the high rise was built, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, from like a website perspective, starting pretty much from the ground up. So it was kind of fun to lay the foundation, and it was really fun to sort of see the opportunities of growth and just to really explore and have fun and just do a lot of different things. And it's a job that's enabled me to grow not only as a cook, but also as a hunter. I've gotten to hunt and do a lot of really cool things that I would have never done before, and just continuing to just constantly thrive in this environment. It is a dream job. When people ask me what I do for a living, I'm not entirely sure how to explain it to them because it doesn't sound like cooking wild foods is a real job. But I tell people I have the best job in the world. I hunt wild places looking for wild foods. That's just what I say. But
well, let's kind of start of that, Danielle. What came first, the cooking or the hunting?
Cooking. I was not I wasn't raised hunting, which, well, it's ironic. I say I wasn't raised hunting because I didn't enjoy hunting or take to hunting. My dad was a South Dakota boy, grew up on a farm. And so he was a bird hunter his whole life, and a hunter his whole life. But moved down to Texas, and Texas is just a different place. I've always kind of thought of it as hunting as a rich man's sport, just because, for one, and when you think about bird hunting, the decline of quails, there's just not a lot of quail opportunities in Texas, especially on public land. There's some, they're here, but the lease, getting on a hunting lease was, not something that was a part of our lives. And so it just never really integrated into our lives. And so I didn't grow up hunting, but my husband's a bird hunter. He grew up bird hunting with his father, and his father from his father. His grandpa ran Brittany's and had a kennel. So my husband introduced me to hunting early on in our relationship. In fact, our first date, he took me to a gun range to sight in a rifle.
Nice.
Very, very romantic. And our second date, he cooked me venison backstrap. So he was.
That is just like my daughter Mackenzie and her husband. He did the same thing. It's like,
really?
Oh yeah, like we went shooting, and then he not only brought back straps, he brought some shrimp and some oysters from Pensacola, Florida, up. So it just kind of wowed you right off the bat. But I've got to be thinking, he meets you, and one of the first things, where are you from? We're from South Dakota. So he's thinking, sweet, she's a hunter, and then he's like, oh, she's not a hunter. I got to work this out, right? He's got to make it happen.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy who, whether I liked hunting or not, he's going to go hunting. And I'm a full believer that each person needs to have a hobby or something they're passionate about in order to thrive. And whether it was hunting or he wanted to be a golfer, I really don't care. If that's what he wanted to do, I'm all about supporting that. But I happen to actually really enjoy hunting. And so I got to experience that with him and have him teach me how to hunt. But yeah, it started early on. I mean, we were living in Texas. So I was born in Texas. My dad and my entire dad's family is from South Dakota. And we would take annual trips up there for hunting season and for visiting family. But I grew up in Texas, and I just met Travis, and I mean, it was literally like from day one, he was a hunter, and that was just kind of a part of our lives. And it didn't take long. I think early on, I remember he shot a deer, and I wanted to help butcher it. So because I knew that I was going to cook and eat that deer, and I just wanted to, I felt like a sense of responsibility in a way. Mm-hmm. And so I started helping out, and it's like, from then on, I was just fascinated. All I wanted to do was just learn how to cook and butcher wild game. And so I got into hunting because I got into wild game cooking. I fell in love with cooking wild game. And then the more I did it, the more I wanted to be a bigger part of the story of where my food came from. And then, of course, we had a bird dog. And that was really the hook, line, and sink is if you get your own dog, I mean, it's the best in the world. I wanted to just be there to watch my dog work. Honestly, that's what really got me in the field, I think.
Danielle, we talked last week, a little pre-chat we met each other once real quick at Pheasant Fest, but we never had any time to really talk. And I like to always get a little conversation started. And I said something about, I used the word chef, and you said, I'm not a chef, Yeah. So what does a chef mean? You make your money at a restaurant? Because I look at your Instagram, my daughter follows your Instagram. Kind of looks like you're a chef to me, but I'm just a millwright from Chicago originally, you know? What's the difference between Danielle Prewett and a chef?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think of a chef as someone who went to culinary school and works in a restaurant.
Okay.
I'm just a home cook.
You're just a home cook.
I went to school for fashion design. So I'm far off the beaten path here from where I'm at now and where I started. I went to school for fashion design, and after I graduated, I kind of had this holy crap moment of I don't really want to do this for a living. I want to like start all the way over. And I started working in some cooking classes, and I worked there for about a year, and I absolutely loved it. And I wanted to go to culinary school. We were talking about I was thinking about enrolling into it, and I was ready to kind of hit the restart button, but we got transferred to North Dakota. My husband got transferred to North Dakota for work. And then that's kind of when everything totally changed. Life completely changed because going from Texas to North Dakota it sounds silly, but it really was life changing because we now got to experience a completely different life we never got in Texas. I think a big part of it is I didn't even know what public land was until I got to North Dakota. And just like being in a place where I just saw the vastness of like just space in the grasslands. It just like, I just fell in love, became obsessed with it. And that, because I didn't get to go to culinary school, I kind of became uber obsessed with cooking and trying to learn and understand everything I could possibly know. And I mean, I probably know just as much as anybody who went to culinary school, but it was all self-taught. And of course I would guarantee a lot of people who do go to culinary school have no idea how to butcher an animal.
I would bet
that's actually not.
I would bet that's very true. Yeah. There's those outliers, but yeah, it's like you kind of, or you organically became a hunter and you organically became your own chef of wild game, really. Yeah. So you moved to North Dakota. Now, were you doing some hunting with Travis in Texas at that point, or did the move come pretty quick?
I think we were only married in Houston for a year. We were here for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love dove hunting or shooting, whatever you want to call it. In Texas, it's just kind of like it's a holiday.
Yeah.
September 1st rolls around and the whole state gets excited. And that was always a lot of fun. And I did a little bit of duck hunting here and there, just like once or twice.
Right.
Because we have a golden retriever. She was our duck dog initially. But I didn't really hunt for real until I moved to North Dakota.
Like walk and stalk with a gun and just go out there and put miles on with a dog. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So, all right, let's start with a little bit. We're going to jump, I know you're not, at least I know you're not a regular listener on my podcast, but if you do, anybody knows I jump all over the place. I'll be telling stories soon. You'll be telling stories, but I know from your Instagram and I know from talking to you, you've got a couple dogs, but where did the golden retriever is your first one?
Yep.
Okay. Give me the golden retriever story. And I got your wire, I did say wire hair, but yours is a Draghtar. I don't want all those Draghtar listeners to. I had a guy write me the other day an email and it says, in fact, it was after I did Steve's podcast, and he wrote this unbelievable. He could have turned it in for a term paper about what I said wrong, on Steve's podcast, and his email started out with, first of all, Ron's pronunciation of the German language was poor at best. Like, just because I didn't roll my Draht, I didn't say Drata, and
I don't even say. I say Druthar. I don't even like pronounce the A's. I don't even like explaining to people the difference between a Druthar because I know I'm probably still screwing it up.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's start with the golden. What's your golden's name?
The golden's name is Marina.
Marina.
Yeah. So we at one point in time we had a sailboat, and we used to do when we were living before we moved to North Dakota. We did a lot of sailing, and we always wanted a dog, and we were just thinking of names in relation to sailboats. Genoa or Jib was also on the list, but we ended up with Marina. And she is a water dog through and through.
So
she's a little red-headed golden.
A red-headed golden. She's got a redder tinge than she's not one of those light white type ones then.
Yeah, I guess that's how I would distinguish her. She's not a show dog. We actually bought her from California.
And did people
used to ask if she. I used to say she was a rescue dog because we bought her from California.
Well, there's probably some accuracy to that. For one thing, you got Marina out of the damn state of California. That's a bit of a rescue. Come on.
Yeah.
So you got Marina. I mean, was it really going to be a bird dog, or was it going to be your sailing dog? Because golden retrievers could do anything. That's my favorite dog in the whole world. I mean,
we bought it for duck hunting.
Duck hunting, and then obviously the heat's terrible in September, but you could use her for retrieving doves as well in the dove field if she doesn't overheat.
Oh yeah, she was the best dove dog. I mean, or she still is. Not a feather out of place. The birds. I mean, if the birds were still alive, they came back alive.
Right.
Like just nothing. It was just like pristine condition. I loved it. She was great.
Yeah.
She was a great dove dog.
I've had a couple dogs like that. And believe it or not, both of them I will say they were registered wire hairs. But for all the things that they killed that had fur on their body, whatever condition the bird was, quail, dove, pheasant, anything, woodcock would come back with its eyes up. They never, it's like they literally just gently picked them up and says, hey, does this one need to go to the hospital? Because it's still very much alive. I'm like, I wouldn't mind a couple dogs. Some dogs kind of just put the crunch on them and you don't even know that they did it, And Marina's a super soft mouth dog then. Yeah.
Very soft mouth.
Did you get into, I hate to disparage dove hunting since I bought a place in Virginia over a decade ago. Dove hunting has become one of my favorite things. And you did say it right. It's dove shooting. It's not so much dove hunting, unless you want to take up walking.
You can't shoot dove in Michigan, can you?
No, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
What is that? Why?
Because somebody in Lansing, Michigan thinks they're a songbird. And so all of our doves cross the Indiana border into a lead curtain, and then they get eaten by Indiana residents. Yeah.
Are they white-winged?
No, they're just regular mourning doves. Yeah, we don't have any white-winged up here. But when I went, I got introduced to dove hunting, and I just love that. It's the best way in the world to kick off a season of starting to cook birds and stuff. It
is. It's a good way to just get out and shoot your gun. Yeah. When we moved to North Dakota, I remember we found a field. There was there's one field on one side covered in sunflowers, and on the other side it was kind of open, and we were like, oh, there were dove everywhere. Yeah. So we knocked on the farmer's door, asked for permission, and he literally looked at us with this look on his face and just was like, what, like he's like, what are you going to just shoot him off the power lines? Like he had never heard of shooting dove in his entire life. Like nobody in North Dakota had ever heard of dove hunting. And I mean, of course, nobody cared if we shot him. Right. I mean, we just cleaned up. It was the best.
Yeah, I did. I knocked a few doves down in North Dakota last year myself. So if your husband's in oil world, he's probably in Western North Dakota, I'm guessing, right?
Yep, Dickinson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So yeah, dove hunting is just like the primer for everything. So I know I told you I was going to go in circles here, and I do. And so here's a girl who grew up understanding there's a hunting culture. You just weren't a hunter. You meet a guy who's a hunter, you're going to become a hunter. There's always that thing with you got to learn to shoot too, and that ain't easy. How did I know your first date was at shooting a rifle, but a shotgun is a whole different animal. How did that come about? Or did
It was
you
tough.
just miss all the doves and your husband shot all the doves?
No, well, so at that time, my husband, I was shooting his grandpa's Belgian Browning,
Okay.
and that gun it was an over under 20, and just something about the grip is really slender, and the stock was a little shorter. It's just pretty lightweight. It really fit really well, and I actually did pretty well with it, because at that point in time, it was all just for fun. Like it was just kind of like get out there and shoot and have fun. And there's something to be said about your skills in shooting when your gun if your gun fits you and you're just watching the bird, there's something to be said about that, like confidence and just having fun.
Yeah.
Like you just shoot better. And then something happened when I took it more serious. That gun was an old gun, and we had some issues with the springs, and it took us a really long time to find a good gunsmith that could replace it. And so once we kind of got it back into, we had to like double breech it every single time. Something about springs. So once we found a good gunsmith that kind of got it back in shape, we just decided that I didn't want to shoot it as my regular gun. I needed to get my own gun, and that was just kind of the fun special gun. And so at that point on, I started shooting. He's got a Satori, and that gun never really fit me. For one, I did not shoot well with it at all. And I would go to the range or go to practice skeet shooting or shoot clays. And I mean, I just get so frustrated that I wasn't hitting, and I would just keep shooting and shooting, even though it was out of frustration, and I would have bruises on my collarbone. I mean, it was just awful. It was awful. I went through a phase of almost I didn't even want to bring a gun. I still wanted to go on a hunt because I enjoyed it, but I just didn't even want to bring a gun because I didn't see the point, and the feeling of frustration was just overwhelming. I just wanted to enjoy the hunt and not worry about missing. And that really sucked.
I bet it did.
It sucked. And then after a while, I took my gun in, or I tried a couple other guns because I was complaining about it. And then we realized this gun, I took it into a gunsmith, and he's like, all right, now shoulder this gun and shoot me square in the forehead. And I shouldered it, and he started laughing. He goes, you shot about 2 feet to the left of me. He's like, this gun doesn't fit like worth the shit.
That's great.
So
now I got to ask you real quick, but I want to stay on this gun thing. You're not by any chance left-handed, are you?
No, I'm right-handed, right-eye dominant.
So it was just this gun. The other gun fit you good, but this gun just, you might as well have been holding a howitzer in your hand or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was standing 4 feet away from the guy, and I probably would have missed him. It's pretty bad. So I ended up switching guns. I got a siren. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. My computer just went to sleep. So I ended up getting a siren, and those are made tailored for women. And I mean, out of the box, it fit perfectly. Hopefully I'm saying the right terminology here. Is that the comb is high enough so that it raises to the cheekbone, because other women's necks are longer. And so what I was realizing is I would tilt my head way over to the side trying to get the stock up to my cheek. And by doing that, I wasn't looking down the barrel right. So there was just a lot of small things about it that just fit really well.
And then the joy came back of shooting a scattergun then.
Yeah, I mean, I still do have some. I just don't shoot as much as I need to be shooting, especially now that I'm here in Houston. But I got into a groove once I got that gun and I was in North Dakota pheasant hunting. I got into a bit of a groove, and it was really fun. And I got to the point where I was taking Z by myself. Travis would go duck hunting, and I would take the dogs and head out to the Badlands and hunt alone for grouse. And it was just like the best time ever, just knowing that I was capable of doing that. And that's when everything started turning upwards.
God, yeah, because it sounds like it was going south before that.
Yeah, I started high and then it went really low and I worked my way back up.
Hold on. As predicted, the dogs are getting restless, so hold on 1 second. Everybody's just going to have to put up with it. It's my wife's corgi. Go. I'm leaving it on for sound effects. Come on, everybody outside. Go play in traffic. Go. Go, everybody go. Go. There we go. Well, wasn't that enjoyable, everybody? Okay. That's how it rolls around here. All of a sudden, I knew one of those dogs would start getting antsy. And I'm like, I got a big fenced-in area outside the kennel, and I just tell them to go play in traffic. All right, back to North Dakota. So you said your husband's out duck hunting, and you would actually you took both Marina and Z. Now, we didn't even get to Z yet. So Z is
I haven't talked
we can't tell a story about Z until we tell a little history. How did you end up with a Deutsche Drahthaar? How did you end up with a Deutsche Drahthaar?
So we moved to North Dakota, and we've got ourselves a duck dog, Marina, the golden. And we immediately knew that we wanted to start pheasant hunting. And so we found some fields in Marina. I mean, her nose was great. She just beelined it right to where they were. And like, of course, us not really knowing for our first time up there with a flushing dog, we're not even close to her. And like, I mean, I can just remember the days of like being in a field and watching every pheasant fly out and be like, all right, well, we're done. Here they all go. Maybe we'll just wait, come back tonight.
Well, so she had all the flushing. She had all the flushing she needed. She just didn't have the range. There was no range control on her.
No, I mean, we would shock her on the highest power we possibly could, and there was just no reining that dog in. At one point, I think Travis had the leash tied around his waist or something. I mean, it was all a little ridiculous. But at one point we had her tied up and like around our waist so that we could walk, carry a gun, have a shot collar, like do all the things. And then I think at another point we were just like, screw it, we'll just run. We literally were like running around the fields. I mean, running, but like walking way too fast.
Right. You were not. If somebody would have saw you from a car from the road, first of all, I'm sorry, with a dog tied around your waist. Okay, first of all, they're going to be like, "Wow, we got to check these guys for hunter safety and licenses." And then, so Plan B is, "Hey, honey, what if we just kind of power walked faster to keep up with her?" Wow. I thought I had a rough start hunting.
It was very short-lived experience of hunting. I mean, she knew where to find them, and I shot my first bird over Marina, and that situation actually worked because there was a slough that there was like a Heart River and a big slough of nothing but cattails. And so that actually worked really well because we just stood on the outside and said, like, have fun and let them flesh up. And so that actually worked really well. And I shot my first pheasant that way. But yeah, it wasn't long until like we made some pretty good friends with a guy who's got a Drawhard kennel there in Dickinson named Rhett Hall. He had a Drawhard, and we started hunting behind that dog, and we just fell in love with that dog. And so we had to have one ourselves. So we got a puppy from South Dakota, and I really owe Travis everything for training this dog. I mean, granted, we didn't have a lot going on in North Dakota, thankfully, because this dog consumed our life. I think he was training. We had a training table set up in the garage, and it was like every morning and every evening after work, we were, even if it was only 5-10 minutes, we were on the training table twice a day. And then when we weren't doing that, he was in the field just playing, finding birds, just having fun. So it was just so many wild birds in that area where we lived that was close to our house that he was just constantly exposed. And it was just from the day one, our entire mission with this dog and our entire life was just consumed with hunting and dog training and birds. It was just all day, every day.
Did you get involved with the German club at all? Did the breeder get you involved with that, or was it just training on your own at home?
Yeah, we did. We went through all the tests, all 2 of them. The VJP, which is the
spring test.
VJP, not VGP.
Yep.
Yeah. VJP is the spring puppy test, and he did phenomenal. He's got himself a big Russian nose. So he did really well, scored a 79 in that. And so everybody told us that was a great score and that we needed to take him to the Armbruster. So we took him to the Armbruster that year, and he tied the winner first place in performance because he's just stellar in the field. But he's a little long. He's not as boxy as they wanted him. He didn't fit quite the standards that they were looking for on coat and conformation. So we got docked some points there. So we ended up coming in 5th, but we were still so proud of the way he performed. And it's funny because like a dog like that, I think I feel like a lot of people go into those sort of situations just trying to control everything because they don't want some sort of outside source to make the dog behave differently. And like Z, we were never worried about it because it was like a switch in his head that the moment he got in the field or the moment he put a shock collar on, the switch went on and nobody else matters in the entire world. He is like 100% focused. Like there was no way anybody could possibly screw him up. He just turns it on. So he performed really well through all the tests.
And Travis did most of the steadiness work, or did he have some help from the club? He did all of it. He did all of it himself. Horse fetch, everything. I'm impressed. Maybe we should get Travis to jump on here for a minute too. That's
I don't know where he is. He's somewhere in this house.
That's great. That's great, Danielle.
I don't. Chad? He may not be in the house.
But so you kind of referred to Z as your dog. is that like, well, I'm the matriarch of the house and all children like animals are mine, or who claims the dog to be theirs? How does that work in the Pruitt house?
Um, when we were in North Dakota, Z was definitely Travis's dog because Travis
Right.
was the handler, and Z was definitely, they had a working relationship. And when I tagged along in the field, it felt like I was the third wheel on a date every time. And I hated it.
I like that.
They had something going on, and I was just third wheeling it. And I would always get mad. I'm like, why are you always in the better position? And he's like, well, I just know where to be positioned when there's a bird. I'm like, no, your dog is working for you, and you guys have something going on. And I feel like I'm butting in all the time. So, yeah, I would say for a while, Z was Travis's dog because Travis, I hunted a lot with him, but Travis was a handler. And then when we moved back to Texas, and here I am working for Meateater, I have a lot more opportunities to hunt. In fact, this past year, Z's kind of always been a mama's boy in the house, but this past year, I missed hunting alone. I think that's a very rewarding experience that I think more people should do. And so I decided that I was going to take a solo trip back to North Dakota and hunt with Z. So I packed up my car, drove from Houston all the way up to North Dakota, and I stopped in Nebraska in the Sandhills and hunted a few days there and camped out. And then we went to the grasslands in the western part of North Dakota and sharp-tailed hunted there. So I had like about 5 days with Z to myself, and it was the first time that it was just me and Z. Or, well, not the first time, but for that extended period of time, it was the first time I guess I got to like feel like we're in the relationship and we are working together, and I finally got that like companionship and compatibility that is such a cool thing. It's so cool to see a dog work with you like
Danielle,
that.
You took off, packed up your car, and went by yourself.
Yes. Yep.
That's a pretty ballsy move, honestly.
Yeah, there was one night in North Dakota. It got very cold. A snowstorm came through, and like I had my tent is like a 2-season tent. It wasn't made for snowing, and there was a hole in the bottom. So I was like, it worked in Nebraska because it was like only like 30 at night or 40 at night. But once we got to North Dakota, I want to say it was in the getting down to the teens, or it was like 19 degrees. And it was snowing. And so that night I have a 4Runner, and I can lay the back seats down, and I can like make it flat so I could sleep in the back of the car. And so like I made a spot, and I was sleeping in the back of the car, and I think the wind chill was below 19. I don't remember what it was, but I remember like waking up in the middle of the night, and Z is shaking uncontrollably. Oh. He's freezing. And so I unzip my bag and I pull him in, and he's my little baby spoon, and I snuggle with the dog. And all I can think is I'm in the middle of nowhere with no cell phone service, hugging my dog to stay warm. Like, what am I doing here? This is crazy. And all I wanted was sharp-tailed grouse. And my friend Rhett had given me a location where he had seen a bunch of grouse like a week before. And I walked all over the area and I couldn't find them. And so I was just kind of like, this is freaking out a little bit about like what in the world I was doing there. But we woke up the next day, got up, got going, made coffee in the snow, and the next day we finally got into the birds and got my sharp tail, and it was like mission complete. It was the best experience ever. And so that was about day 5 of the trip. And then Travis, of course, he's jealous and I'm on this cool hunting adventure on my own. And so he flew up to North Dakota. And so I drive from from the Badlands into Dickinson and pick him up. And then we did a lot of pheasant hunting with some friends in the area.
You got to a more social hunt after that. But you soloed it with that. Yeah. I don't know. I hate, like everyone knows from this podcast, I'm like, because of like raising 3 daughters who I think are pretty tough and independent. That's a move. I mean, you have to be in the, I don't know what micro percent of women hunters, but to go and sleep in the back of your truck or in a tent in Nebraska and then get up like, all right, I got to do this. I'm kind of, my jaws kind of drop sitting there listening to the story. I mean, that's just, I would definitely be, they do have hotels, you know that, right? There's hotels.
Well, I thought about staying in Medora, but the place I wanted to hunt, I don't know. I was like, I don't want to waste time driving 20, 30 minutes into the area I wanted to hunt. I like honestly didn't want to do that. Well, part of it was like I was on the mission to camp and hunt out and like have a remote experience. Part of that is because we lived a certain lifestyle in North Dakota where we were constantly out there by ourselves and not seeing anybody around. And there's just a feeling about it. Like it, we were like by Elkhorn Ranch where Teddy Roosevelt was. It was just so like, it was just magical. Like I just loved the energy of that area so much. And so once we moved to Houston and I just felt really claustrophobic and like, I just had no sense of wildness here. I just really wanted to do this. Travis had a limited amount of time that he could hunt. And I knew that like in that short window, I wasn't going to be able to accomplish what I wanted. And what I wanted to do was just like be alone in the wild and also have time to hunt with Z with just the 2 of us and just sort of establish a working relationship between us. And I learned a lot from that, those few days really doing cool. that.
Like I said, I don't think there's a handful of people I don't have a handful of friends that are guys that have done it, let alone girls that have done it. I probably would have let my daughters do it. I probably would have drove out there and stayed about a quarter of a mile away with a spotting scope to keep an eye on them. I was like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Well, the good thing is like it's an area I've been to a lot before, so I knew where I was going, and I have Onyx. I'm not going to get lost. I have all the maps downloaded. I'm not going to get lost. There's no. I'm terrified of bears, so like I would never do this in Montana. I'm terrified of bears.
I'm so glad to hear
that. So this situation would really only work in North Dakota because it's a place I'm familiar with. It's not entirely.
I got a picture. You get up in the morning, you're making coffee, and I've been out in those big places, and it's kind of like you own it. Even though you don't. I mean, we kind of all own it technically as public land, but like it's just like you get up in the morning and it's yours. That is a cool feeling.
Yeah.
And then, so I gotta go back to Z now. So now. You don't feel like the third wheel on a double, like you don't feel like the single girl on a double date anymore with Z.
Yeah, no, when we're together, Travis and I and Z still kind of works for Travis, but I feel like I earned his respect in a different way that he's very conscious of me too.
Yeah. And that people don't realize the chore. There are a lot of people who, love bird hunting and take that one trip with, like I did for many years, just with a bunch of friends. But when you're on that trip by yourself, you're like, it's feeding the dog in the morning, airing them out on the road, airing them out in the morning. You got all those other things. It's like taking a baby with you in a way, because the dog can't say it's time to feed. You have to like you got to kind of get parental over that, and then you also got this beast out there that you probably with Z, I wouldn't say he should go after a bear, but with Z out there, you had to have a little bit of comfort level that the dog is pretty tough too, right?
Yeah, we did get one porcupine, and I did come prepared with some pliers. And that was the first time I've had to do that by myself. Deal with porcupine.
Did he get a lot? You didn't have to go to the vet. You got it to the point where you could get him out yourself.
Yeah, it wasn't very bad. It was maybe like 8 of them on the outside of on his nose, or like the bridge of his nose. It wasn't bad. And honestly, he pointed it for a long time, and gosh darn it, I knew it wasn't a bird, but why the hell was I not getting him off of it? I don't know. I was just like curious. I was bored. I don't know. Looking back, I feel so stupid, and I didn't get him off of it, but because he pointed for a long time, because he used to just go straight in, and then we've broken him off of it to where he points, and then we can usually take him off of it as long as we don't shoot the porcupine after we take him off.
Yeah.
But that day I was an idiot and was just like, oh, I'm bored. What's going on here? Of course it's a porcupine. What else would it be?
Tromp around and look in the grass. Yeah. That
I know.
So how old is Z now? Probably, I'm guessing 3 or 4 at this point, right? He's 5. Okay, so you've had him.
He's
for a
5.
while. Do you?
Yeah, he'll be 6.
Do you still make the treks up north? I don't follow all your trips and where you go. Do you still take some trips with him, or together with trips?
Yeah, we're trying to explore more of the quail country now that we're down here. So we go to North Dakota every year. We're going to go back to North Dakota this year, but in February we're planning on exploring Arizona a little bit more. Arizona and New Mexico. Well, we went to New Mexico last year and kind of got into we got into a couple coveys of scaled quail that just ran and ran and ran and ran, and we just didn't really close in on them. But it turned into a rabbit extravaganza, and we basically shot a bunch of rabbits, which I'm not opposed to. I love rabbits, but it was not so much a quail hunting trip as it was a rabbit trip.
With scalies, that's just a running bird. So the rabbit, you're like, well, hey, when in Rome, if there's rabbits, we're going to take some rabbit meat home.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a long drive.
Now,
I don't want to go empty-handed.
Marina all this time?
Oh, Marina's a great rabbit dog. I mean, I don't know what it is about her, but from the moment she was born, she's had it out for bunnies. I mean, I've never seen a dog hate a rabbit so bad in my life. And I nicked one, or somebody nicked one in the foot, and she caught up to that rabbit. She's caught a couple rabbits in North Dakota. She figured out the game where they would kind of do their little zigzag thing, and she would go in the opposite. When they would turn, she went the opposite direction and managed to start cutting them off. And she's caught a few rabbits that way. It helps. It helps if we put a pellet in them, but she has caught one without shooting it. Yeah.
Now, do you shoot rabbits over Z? No,
yeah,
I disagree.
Probably
a lot of people say,
"Oh,
never shoot a rabbit for a bird dog." If you want to eat a rabbit, I've never. The pointing is an instinct, and if they sometimes they do point the rabbit, but I've never. It shouldn't be detrimental to the pointing of the dog. I just wondered how, because we'll go with the German version. The Drahthaar is a lot more fur oriented, but yet. the rabbit is kind of still like prey. Does Z act any different with a rabbit in his mouth than he does a bird? Okay.
If it's dead,
Right.
no, he just brings it back. If it's alive, he'll kill it and bring it back. Well, he'll do that with he'll do he'll do that with
you've done some
geese
goose hunting with them too?
I think. Yeah. Yeah, we take him duck and goose hunting too. But yeah, the good thing about Z is he's loud on fur. So anytime we're hunting, he definitely has a prey drive, but at least we know what we're getting into.
If you run into, I always hear so much about, javelinas and the problems they can be, and you're in Texas. Now, I don't know. I know Houston's mostly concrete, but the rest of Texas, has Z gotten into any pigs or javelinas?
Yes, in fact, he's caught a few of those too. Yeah, we have a ranch in about an hour out of town, and we have some wild hogs up there. And I want to say it's happened 2 or 3 times now where he has caught a piglet in his mouth and brought it back to us. And usually those pigs are with the sows. And so I don't know if it's one of those things. We hear when this happens, we hear him usually in the thick of trees and he's barking, and we know something's going on, and it takes a little bit of time, and we hear him moving around, and then he'll come back. But I think what he does is he gets them on the run, and I think he finds a way to separate one from the pack and picks it up. That's the only thing I can think of, because if that mama is near him, they would tear him up. You don't really I don't really want him doing that, because it's only a matter of time where something's going to go wrong. But the only way I can figure picking these pigs up is he's separating one from the pack.
And says, "Mama, you can't catch me." Who knows? Now,
maybe I don't know.
How big of a piglet has he?
We've definitely come back
so far.
They're not very big. They're pretty young. They're maybe a little more than that, but not much.
Do you do any?
Yeah, it's so funny. We were like camping we were out at a ranch with friends, and they were like, thought the dog was so cool. They're like, so your dog just like, he hunts all this stuff. He can do, like, they were just amazed about all these things he could do. And then he disappeared in the trees, and then he comes back with a pig, and they were like, oh my God, you just send your dog out and it gets you food, like whenever you want. And it's like, well, not exactly, but I guess so.
No, my wire hairs have taken, not bragging and not, I think the statute of limitations out, but I've seen him come back with a fawn, just out on a training day. And all of a sudden, I had one night where I was out at our training grounds, and my black one, all of a sudden I hear a fawn bleat, and I'm like, uh-oh. And the doe comes running across this 40-acre mowed hayfield, and like straight, she's coming right to the noise, but the problem is I'm in between the noise and the dog. And I never knew that a doe had these instincts, right? Just like you said, you go somewhere, you're like, I didn't know that. I didn't know how that was going to be. And that doe heard that from across the field, like a 40-acre field, a 40-acre square, came running right at me. Of course, I'm the only one that she can see. And I had a female German short hair with me, and she was a chicken heart. She's at my feet, and this doe is running a circle around me and Queenie, like this 15-foot, like smaller than a big swimming pool. She's running around us like 2 or 3 times. And I'm thinking, okay, deer can use their hooves. I'm going to have to pick up Queenie and guard my face. And I don't know if I'd have done it to her or not, but all of a sudden there was one more fawn bleat, and she busted into this woodlot, and and finally, my dog came out. She even scared my wire hair, apparently. But it was unfortunately over for the fawn, unfortunately. But no, they have a they
Yeah.
have this set of gene skills that you can't understand. It's like there's no way you have trained them to do that, and it's just instinctual. It just was like, oh, that needs to be dispatched, and hey, if I can carry it back, I'll carry it back to you.
Yeah. Yeah, my friend, the Rhett, who got me into this, does the Brigsold training for blood tracking, and it's just amazing what you can teach a dog to do.
I read on that, and I had some
It's
friends
amazing.
that were in the VDD GNA when I started out, and I read about how you could train your dog to do that, like track the deer, find the deer, come back with the baton in its mouth, or I think the other one's Tortverbellen,
Yeah.
where they'll stand at the game and just bark until you come there and get it. And that's just in them. I mean, you got to train it to refine it, but it's just in them to do it. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's so impressive. I love just watching dogs. Just you just see the wheels turning in their head, and it's just it's amazing.
When you got your first sharp tail all by yourself out there on the prairie, did you do a celebratory Danielle Pruitt meal, or did you wait for Travis to get there, or where's the cook? Does the cook in you come out at the campground, or do you wait till you get home when you got all your cooking utensils?
Well, they were eating buffalo berries, and so I filled my game bag up with buffalo berries because I was planning to make a meal with it. But I, believe it or not, had a Zoom meeting for work that I needed to drive to a hilltop and find cell service. So I was like, well, I'm just going to pluck it, clean it, and go to my work meeting. Because that's my job. I just get to, be in the middle of nowhere and hunt.
Not bad.
Just in time for work meeting, real quick. It's not bad. But I still have it in my freezer. I wanted to do something special with it. But unfortunately, I forgot about the berries and they rotted in my game bag. So I had to throw those away. Because the plan was to make a meal with the berries.
Now, I've heard of people doing, something they find, like indigenous out there that the birds are feeding on, or even, other critters are feeding on when they shoot them. What would you have done with the berries and a sharp tail? Well, I mean, give people an idea of what you would have made. Mm-hmm.
They're really tart. So I probably would have made a pan sauce and kind of, my favorite thing to do with those game birds, partridges and grouse are about the same size, but I spatchcock them. I pluck them, spatchcock by snipping out the backbone, and then I give them a dry brine, which is basically, instead of submerging in salt water, I just add salt to the meat and no water at all, and then let it air dry in the fridge so the skin dries out. And then I just sear it in a cast iron until the skin's crispy, and then put it in the oven to finish cooking. But in that cast iron pan, you get like all the little cracklings. Well, that's what Steve calls them, cracklings. Technically, it's called fond. It's the brown bits at the bottom of the pan. And I would deglaze it with some liquids, some stock, add some shallots, and those buffalo berries, because they're so tart, they would kind of add an acidic component to it. And I might add some sort of, I don't know if I was going to do wine or add some honey, something to balance out the tartness with something sweet. So you have like sweet, savory, tart, kind of like a lot going on, but you would basically boil it and reduce it down till it gets almost a syrupy consistency, to make a pan sauce to serve. That's what I was thinking about doing. but
most
I
people
didn't
leave
do
a
it.
bird in
I
their
lost
vest
the
and the
berries.
bird starts stinking after a week. You just lost the berries. Yeah. You've never done that, have you?
Oh gosh.
Because the meat
No,
has
I
got such a
haven't.
value, you wouldn't dare do that. But I've been guilty of it several times. Now I'm gonna do a little cooking thing, or I want to do a little cooking thing with you. So I've seen your post. In fact, I just saw your article in Covey Rise. You and Hank Shaw, Hank Shaw, and Nancy
Oh,
Ansfield all did some stuff with woodcock, and I'm a big fan of strong flavored meat. I do not shy away from that. But
you
yep,
like woodcock and
and
you like
I'm going to be
sharp
going
tail.
up to Alaska, and I'm going to be doing some ptarmigan hunting, and that's Steve's brother Danny says he says they're all right. They're all right, but they're not that good to eat. They're a darker meat. Um, well,
I didn't know they were darker. I
I'll
thought
let
they
you
were
know.
lighter.
I'll save some for
I've
you.
never
I'll
hunted
ship one down to you. But so the bird that so many people shoot, pheasants, right? I have one recipe a guy gave me, and when you start talking about deglazing the pan, we deglaze the pan with an apple brandy and do that. It's very similar to what you're talking about. But pheasant, it's like, to me, it's like, it's like blah to me. What do you do? And you've shot a few pheasants, a bunch of pheasants, I'm sure at this point. What do you do? What do you do with a pheasant to make it, to me, good or almost as good as a dark meat bird? Because I'm not the biggest fan of pheasant.
Well, you're not going to have the same robustness of flavor, but the best thing you can do is to really brown the meat really well. And that is what gives it the savoriness that I think you're probably lacking. Browning is a reaction that happens when proteins and sugars heat up together. It's a chemical reaction. It's called the Maillard reaction, and it's the thing that it's the term for what you call the savory flavors that happens when you're baking bread or you're grilling
Yeah, I
meat,
can
and all of a
picture
sudden
that.
you start salivating. There's sort of imagine the evolution of a human, and I've heard that this reaction and a human salivating is a way of letting us
Wow.
know that food is safe to eat.
Sure.
If you think about it in like primitive way. Yeah, so that browning reaction, it's when you get that really golden crust and it's really savory. So if you don't really create that browning of the meat before you cook it, it's going to taste very bland. And that goes for really anything, even venison. But if you're particularly working with a light meat that doesn't have as much flavor, then you want to make sure you accomplish that. And so that's why I love keeping skin on and sort of spatchcocking it and frying it in the cast iron, is because you get lots of flavor that way. And then of course,
I would agree.
the thighs. I
with
think the
that.
thighs on a pheasant are the best.
That would be if that's what I was going to be able to choose. I would just break off all the thighs and eat the thighs. But so because so many people go to, let's say, hunting lodges or they hurry up and they skin them, and I know you're probably going to cringe because I've had Hank Shaw on the podcast a couple times. I've had Scott Latheth, and everyone's like, Ron, will you please start plucking your birds? So I actually, what's that?
I've skinned a handful of pheasants.
Right.
I said
so
I've
give me
taken the skin off of a lot of pheasants.
Right.
If you hunt a lot, you're not plucking every single bird. Or if you shit, you're not going to pluck it. There's no point. So I know I don't want to be a snob and say everything needs to be plucked. I'll give them that. It is much better when the skin is in good condition. The skin on is much better. but
agree.
you don't always have the opportunity to do
So
that.
the same thing would
And you
apply.
need
So
to
if
be able
you
to work
skinned your
around that.
pheasant, even if you didn't spatchcock it, even if you took the breast meat off, same principle, putting that sear on that and then cooking it late, cooking it after that.
Yep. And you want to work with a higher heat. So most of the time, I'll get nerdy just for 1 second. With that is a barrier to heat
Yep.
transfer. So imagine like a really fatty steak and you're cooking it. It's going to take longer for that steak to cook because there's a lot of fat on it. Now, if your heat is too high, you're going to char the skin and you're going to end up with undercooked meat. So you got to crank that heat down a little bit. With wild game, especially something like a pheasant breast that's extremely lean, if you cook it at medium, by the time you get that brown exterior you're looking for, you've overcooked it. So you've got to do it at a higher heat, faster cooking, browner on the outside.
Do you always have to finish it in an oven, or can you just get that frying pan, sear it, and
No.
let it rest a little bit, and it'll be good?
Yeah, if you've taken it off the bone, you probably only need to sear it in the pan for a couple minutes, flip it, sear it a couple minutes, you're done. I only put it in the oven if it's attached to the carcass, because you're cooking it on one side, you flip it, it's going to take a lot more time to cook it from the bottom up, because you've got, well, one, it's not in contact with the pan because there's air in between it and then bone between it. So it takes a lot longer. So I just put it in the oven so that it's getting even cooking, radiant throughout the whole thing.
Give us a good, I feel like I'm saying, okay, now show us how to do this. But all right, if you're going to have the time to do an oven bake, do you still always do some searing? Or if you have a whole bird, is there a favorite oven recipe where it's like, no, I'm just going to use the oven to cook this bird? No. I like it. I like
Never.
it. Never.
I always, so there's
okay.
There are two ways of cooking. Okay, let's clarify this. There are two ways of cooking: hot and fast, low and slow. Hot and fast, we're working with skinless, boneless, just breast meat. Just do it on the stovetop, and that's it. You don't need to transfer it to the oven. If you are, I was wrong. I shouldn't say never. If you are working with, say, the breast and the thighs, and you want to braise it, you would first brown it over high heat. Then you would put it in a very low temperature oven, and it would slowly finish cooking until the thighs are tender. The third option, which is my special way of cooking pheasant, like I have a tradition every Thanksgiving we have pheasant. We've done that ever since we moved to North Dakota. And so what I do, if it's a one whole plucked bird, is it's taken me some time to master this, but I stick an oven-proof thermometer into the thigh, and I put it in the oven at like 200 degrees-ish. And then when that thigh is about 15 degrees from being cooked, I take it out of the oven, and then I turn the oven up as high as it can go. Hot, 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 hot. Turn the broiler on, and then I can either add like and granted, this turkey's been brined. It's got like butter all over it and all that good stuff. And then you can apply a glaze or something, but you put it back in at the very end, really high heat, and that skin gets really crispy. And then it finishes cooking that way. And it just takes a few minutes to do it. And that's the only recipe I would do that's oven only.
There's a post of you on your Instagram with a stack of cooking books. Do you know that one? Like, there's like a dozen cooking books. Do you, as a I will not use the word chef, as a wild game cook, do you pour through those like I pour through a pointing dog journal or a book about bird dogs? And or are they all kind of the same, but you just can't help it? You got to read them all. I mean, do you really read them all? Because it's hard to get your hands around. Like, why are there so many cookbooks about wild game? Sorry, I do come up with one.
That's a great question. Why it's about wild game in general, but just like when you go to a bookstore and you see a cookbook about how to make cupcakes that look like unicorns, you're like, why does this book exist? Who's buying this? Anyway, but yeah, I do read, and they're not every single book. If they're a reputable cook that I have a lot of respect for, I read it like a book. I read the recipes, the whole thing. I want to read their language in the way that they describe things, because you can just tell someone how to cook any recipe by giving them step by step, and you can say, do this for 5 minutes. But there's something different about a cook who's done it so many times that it's so intuitive for them that they can tell you how to cook something by describing the way, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're hearing. And I love reading perspectives from other chefs, and the way that they write
It's kind of like what you said about,
just interesting
smelling
to me.
something and you kind of salivate. So almost like you'll read this author, this cookbook, and one of them chapters or something he's doing and describing almost makes you salivate to try the recipe almost.
Yeah, that's a goal.
What's this year
A
bringing
good
for you,
cookbook
Danielle?
should be able to do that.
Where are you guys going? And now you told me that you're going to be moving. Is it to get into more birds, or just to get out of Houston, or what's the plan this year?
A little bit of everything. Definitely ready to move to the country and kind of have a quieter life. We'll be in South Texas, so it's a lot closer to bird country over there, or quail country. A little bit further to drive all the way back up to North Dakota. But this year we've got, oh gosh, I don't even know where my season begins 2 weeks from now. I'll be in Hawaii for Axis.
Back up the bus. No.
And then what's that?
Is this a work trip, or is this Danielle going to get some Axis deer? I knew it. Okay, keep going.
It's a work trip. And then just some fishing, crabbing, and then we'll be back in North Dakota for upland hunting, and then I drew a tag in Montana for big game, so I'll be in Montana in November. But as far as upland goes, I think the only trips I have planned, I have one trip in North Dakota, one trip to South Dakota, and then we're going to try out Arizona and New Mexico for quail this year, closer to February.
Did you find you kind of mentioned? I'll wrap this up real quick, but so I didn't realize when you said your dad was from South Dakota, so I kind of assumed you were raised in South Dakota, but so your dad's from North Dakota or the Dakotas, and you go to Texas, then you have this trip where you get with you and Travis, you move to North Dakota. Did you did you dislike? I know this sounds funny. I don't want to put you in a spot, but when you went back to Texas, because Texas has hunting opportunities, but early on you started this conversation with, you kind of thought like that was kind of a rich man's sport, which North Dakota's pretty privately owned too, but a lot of parts of North Dakota you can hunt on people's property if it's not posted. Where in Texas that's ludicrous, right? I mean, it's all posted. Right. And the little bit of public land in Texas, I'm sure you could find a spot or two or to go, but is there when you went back to Houston, did you have like some like, oh, damn? I mean, did North Dakota, like spoil you, or are you just going to adjust to it?
Oh yeah. I mean, totally spoiled. We came back for work, and it was a good decision to do that. We felt our time there was, professionally speaking, was coming to an end, and so it was a smart move, but it was one where we were very sad to go. It was very hard. But I will say it it gave me a fresh perspective and a new way of looking at Texas that I had never seen before. Because in North Dakota, we were constantly looking for opportunity, and in Texas, we kind of made this like false assumption that, well, we're just out of luck. But now that we had explored what there is out there, I came back to Texas and with fresh eyes, and we've discovered so much more about Texas that I didn't know before. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely more
Right.
available in Texas than meets the eye, but you have to learn it, and it's kind of a secret. I think there's a lot of people who want to hunt in Texas, and it's not something that's talked about a lot, and so you just have to do your homework for sure.
Do you think Texas is the final
Yeah,
landing
a lot
place
more
for the
homework.
Pruitts, or do you think that could change again? I don't want to get you into a fight with Travis tonight. No, I
don't know. Anything. I think anything could change. I think we both. I think our hearts are bird hunting, and I think it'll just depend. I mean, we tried to stay very flexible and be able to travel and go wherever we want. North Dakota, we only hunted North Dakota. Only hunted North Dakota. And so I guess the good thing about now is I see everywhere as a hunting opportunity, and we travel and try a lot of different things that we wouldn't have tried before. So
any new dogs
I'm open
on
to
the
moving.
horizon
I'm
down
open
the
to
road?
staying. I don't know.
Okay.
Not right now. It's a big commitment. I know what kind of commitment that is, and I don't think I'm ready for it. Not yet. Someday.
Okay, so you've got
Marina's
the older
9, Z is
dog, you got a
5.
good middle-aged dog. You're in good shape dog-wise. All right. Well, listen, Danielle, I appreciate you coming on, talking about, like I said, everybody. I think I don't want to give Steve all this credit. I really don't. But I think people have had I'm going to say last 5, maybe 8 years. It's something that we never, like when I went hunting back in the day, we didn't talk about cooking. We just, whatever we did, we did. And the cooking part of it and the experimenting with cooking is really, I don't want to say taken off, but it's added another layer to upland hunting and all hunting. It's kind of like everybody, there was, let's say in the 1960s, there was so many more hunters than there is today. But today, there's so many more recipes than there were in the 1960s.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think, I think what Steve has done and what Meateater has done has opened the doors for people to see hunting in a new way, whether you didn't hunt before and you didn't know anything about hunters. It's given a fresh perspective and a more personal look at who hunters are, but it's enabled people who do hunt to
I agree,
to enjoy
100%.
their game.
Next time you have a meeting with
more.
Steve, you might not want to tell him you got on the podcast with me, because that might come up in your yearly review. You might get a demerit for your yearly review. But If you run into any trouble with them, just let me know because I can make a phone call. I do have a little influence yet with them. All right. Well, listen.
All right, I'll do that.
I appreciate you coming on, and
Thank you
I
so
hope our
much
paths
for
cross
having me
again,
on.
either at a pheasant fest or a day in Montana or a day in Texas. You never know. As long as you pluck the birds.
Yeah, we should get a hunt put together. I will definitely do that because
now
I
you
pluck
sound
it
like
better
King
than
Shaw.
anybody else. I don't want any half plucked birds.
All right, Danielle. Thanks so much for coming on. All right. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
All right, thanks. Bye.